Good afternoon, welcome to the UK Column Live. It's the 23rd of October 2012, it's just gone noon. Myself and Brian Gerrish are here in Plymouth as always. Afternoon, Brian.
Good afternoon.
What's the weather doing, Brian?
Well, I'm told that the weather outside is overcast, a little bit misty, very autumnal, and getting a bit chilly. So
Indeed it is.
I think it's winter draws on.
Thank you very much. We're going to start, aren't we, with a story local to Plymouth.
Well, this is an important story and some excellent coverage by our local paper, the Plymouth Herald, that's talking about the fact that the 5 Royal Marine Commandos who are on a murder charge at the moment have been released from custody back into their barracks. Judge Advocate General Jeff Blackett has said he sent them back to their barracks, but they've got to remain there subject to certain conditions. And of course the key thing with this case is that there has been the most phenomenal reporting restrictions. So although press have been allowed have been allowed access to some aspects of the case, there have been reporting restrictions and also they've been banned from going into certain matters, in particular the granting of the anonymity order. At the moment there's a lot of controversy about this case because of course the charges were initially levied at 7 men, it's now been reduced down to 5, but of course the public is really being kept in the dark about what the circumstances are around this. Obviously it's understood that for the personal protection of these Royal Marines, not everything can be reported, but at the end of the day, how are we to know what's really happening, not only for the safety of our Royal Marines and other forces in Afghanistan, but also what the government is actually doing in the background. And certainly locally, we've just got a picture of some Royal Marines in action in Afghanistan here. These have obviously been blacked out to protect the individuals, and in any case they are not the individuals concerned in the allegations so far. But it is important that the truth does come out about this, and we have people locally saying that they believe that there is a lot of government, there's a large government political agenda. So what exactly these men are supposed to have done and what exactly the truth is obviously going to take a little bit of time for it to come out. We're going to stay with Afghanistan. One of the things that UK Column Live has been reporting on quite a lot over the last few weeks, and we say quite rightly so, is the use of drones. And the Telegraph today has revealed that Britain is going to be deploying more of these Reaper aircraft, drone aircraft. They are going to be operating from RAF Waddington in Lincolnshire, but they will be active in Afghanistan. And of course the key thing with these aircraft is, to put it bluntly, they are going to be used to kill people. So we've got this very suspect situation of people effectively playing video games at RAF Waddington, but what they're going to be doing is killing people on the other end. And of course there's been great controversy over the accuracy of these drones, in as much as who are they targeting? Have they actually been killing the enemy, or have they been killing innocent civilians?
Well, yeah, today I picked it, apparently it is in the mainstream, but Press TV are saying that William Hague is apparently supposed to be in court today. He's being brought by Noor Khan, whose father died in a CIA assassination drone attack, and he's taking legal action against the UK government due to its role in the strikes. Hague is apparently due in court today. The solicitors of Lee and Day Co have stressed that the case is seeking to challenge the legality of Britain's intelligence sharing for lethal drone strikes. Yeah.
So what we're seeing is that the UK is steadily being embroiled in this very murky business. We've got a war going on. We're not quite sure who the enemy is, but we're going to use high technology to kill people. Yeah. And obviously there are now casualties appearing on the ground.
Exactly.
But at least our politicians, William Hague in this case, are being called into court. Yeah. But we've also got the business of the torture of individuals. So at the moment, Britain's politicians, without really any debate in Westminster, are getting involved in murkier and murkier international military operations.
Yeah,
Mike's got a...
Well, I was just going to say that what I find suspicious about this whole thing is that last night, after the Jimmy Savile panorama programme, there was a programme on following some military in Afghanistan, and the rules of engagement that they seem to be required to operate under really don't permit them to engage at all. It's worse. It even seems to be a worse situation than they had in Northern Ireland. And so they're expected to wait around to be shot at, while people sitting safe in Britain are controlling drones, which are actually targeting goodness knows what. The people on the ground aren't entitled to target the actual enemy. The people in the UK are targeting potentially political targets, perhaps. I'm just asking that as a question.
Well, what I can say, Mike, is even going back into the late 80s, in the late 80s, this was an increasing problem, that you had military units in the front line that were being steered and controlled effectively by people back in the back room in Britain. So it's a function of the communications. As the communications have got more effective, the data links have got more effective, you've now got effectively people in suits who think that they've got a better picture of the front line than the troops on the ground. And of course, this is what makes it so insidious with these Royal Marines. They've had to put their lives on the line, on the front line, doing the job. Meanwhile, they're judged by people, of course, who never go near the front line. And I think it's very interesting that if you look at British politicians today, while some of them have been in the military themselves, if you start to ask the questions about how many children of MPs are involved in these conflicts, of course, very few of them, because the MPs are presumably warning their own children off. So we'll certainly look into this issue much more closely, and we will be doing some in-depth reports on the Royal Marine Commandos from Plymouth.
Interesting, just to butt in the chat book, someone say there's the video game Black Ops 2 Call of Duty. The storyline is that a hacker group has taken control of the drone armies and declared war on the people. So it really is, you're quite right when saying computer games.
Well, it is computer games, and I think the thing which I'm going to keep coming back to is that none of these issues are being fully debated in Westminster. It's quite obvious from the empty seats in Parliament that we see on Westminster Live that the only people controlling what's happening in the country are a very small number of politicians who are privileged to be in the cabinet, and this is a very dangerous situation.
Very.
Mike, I think you're going to lead us into more on the money system.
Right, well, Telegraph is reporting that this gentleman, Andrew Bailey, who is the senior, he's going to be looking after what's going to be called the Prudential Regulation Authority once the Financial Services Authority is migrated into the Bank of England next year. And he's saying that he is developing a new regulatory system which will allow banks to fail, and in what he's saying is in an orderly way. And so the banks will no longer be too big to fail anymore. I think this is nonsense. Without Glass-Steagall, without separation of the retail and investment banks, and the financial positions that investment banks are taking are so massive, so large, and with such knock-on effects that nobody really understands potentially, then I think he's living in cloud cuckoo land. That there could be any kind of orderly failure of a big bank as it stands at the moment. So meanwhile, in the real economy, Britain's graduates are being put off going for postgraduate courses, and it seems that less than 10% of students are currently taking up postgraduate courses, and this puts Britain actually on a par with Kazakhstan, according to the Telegraph, and Andorra. That's a spectacular record to have, isn't it? And really, we're not investing in our future. These people are needed for Britain's future, and it's in the short term it has the effect of requiring universities and colleges to import foreign students in order to pay their way. And in the long term it means that Britain is going to have to, well, if Britain still exists as a nation in 20 or 30 years, is going to have to import foreign skills in order to just keep up its infrastructure. So that's, I think that's quite a serious situation. And then we have, in the real economy again, 2/3 of mortgage borrowers living in fear of a rate rise. And I think an interest rate rise is an inevitable thing in the not too distant future. And I think what this article is pointing out is that most people really could not take a rate rise, and this looks to me like a warning that people are going to start seeing property being removed and handed over to the bankers in the not too distant future.
And of course we're already removing people from housing association or former council housing, because if they've got too many bedrooms, obviously the council is losing money. Well, this is what they claim, and on that basis people are being evicted from their properties. So
well, they're having to have strangers come into the house and rent the room.
Or strangers. But does this make sense if you apply common sense? Of course it doesn't. The only way what is happening here makes sense is if you say that there is a deliberate and sustained government policy to actually take private property away from people, and that is the view of UK Column Live.
And this brings me on to this article, because I've been saying since long before I joined the UK Column, so going back 5 or 6 years probably, that anybody of more or less my age, mid-40s and above, is not going to receive any kind of pension. Subsequently, of course, we discovered that the state pension pot and the public pension pots have got massive black holes in them. But I still was of a view that if the economic policies that were being implemented by Blair and whatnot were to be continued, that really people would not be expecting any kind of pension, and in fact we'd find ourselves, the pension age being pushed out further and further to the point where actually everybody can expect to be working until the day they drop dead. This Mail article hints at it, and also the Express article is a bit more explicit about it. Millions must work forever. The fact of the matter is that with the economic policies that have been in place for the last 30, 40 years, the way that those are being played out, there is no danger that anybody of my age and below, will be receiving any kind of pension that's worth anything. We will be working ever longer, and unless, the key point about this is that these policies can be changed, and while people continue to bury their heads in the sand and hope that it isn't going to happen, nothing's going to change. We've got to get people active on this issue and on the other issues that we cover.
And obviously the first thing is for people to actually understand that they are being attacked by their own government. These are not policies which are coming into force through incompetence. If you look at the way that they're interlinked, there's definitely a structure to what's happening. And if we say what is the result of what's taking place, well, if you don't educate youngsters properly, if you don't give them skills training, if they can't afford accommodation, if they've got debt around their necks by the age of 23, 24, we don't have pensions. What we're actually watching is this country being deliberately collapsed from the inside. And of course we come back to the fact that it is no accident that Saul Alinsky, the great subversive, his doctrine is being used within both the Tory Lib Dem policies and within Labour. And if viewers or listeners would like to do their own research or talk to the parties themselves, you will find that what we're saying is absolutely correct. We are being attacked by our own government.
I'd just like to add, there's just a bit of chat going on in the chat room with regards to the people getting homeless.
Yes.
They're saying, where are all these homeless people going to go once they're out on the street? Where are they all going to end up?
Well, at the moment there is no provision for them to end up, but what we do know that in areas of London it's quite clear now that they're not going to tolerate people sleeping on the streets, and people are being moved out of the city areas.
They're saying here children get taken, and maybe the children into such things as the possible FEMA camps, possibly. Who knows?
Well,
what's going to happen?
We don't know, but what's very clear at the moment is that neither the Tory party or the Lib Dems or Labour is showing that they are actually working for the good of people in this country. Yeah. You've got an interesting little article here, I think, about being charged to walk home.
Yeah. Daily Mail are reporting on this. £16 council permit to walk through a car park. The council also wants £122 a year to allow vehicle access. This is going, well, Canterbury Council has said that homeowners would need to take out £2 million of public liability insurance. The council bought land at the back of 14 homes it's in Whitstable, which were compulsory purchase back in 1995, have sent out letters to the people of the area saying that they need to buy passes. A lot of the residents thought it was an April Fool's joke, but it's no joke. They need to take out permits to walk across a car park to get home.
Yeah, well, this is a pattern which we're seeing across the country at the moment, which is local councils or city councils absolutely making the law up to suit themselves. One of the key issues that's being reported to us at the moment is smoking bans. So, for example, you will have an NHS property, it's public initially, it's then made into a trust, and then it implements a law of no smoking in the open air. And of course,
this is looking like zones. Sorry to butt in there,
zones.
Brian. It's literally, you've got to have a licence to walk to this part of the town.
Well, I think ultimately we're heading that local authorities are going to control every aspect. They're going to say how many bedrooms you can have in your house.
Yep.
We know that local housing associations are setting down rules as to what you can and cannot do in your home.
Yep.
And if you break those rules, you can be thrown out of your home.
Yep.
We're issuing on-the-spot fines, we're issuing parking tickets, we're going to issue fines for smoking in the open air, which is not actually a law within UK, or any ban on smoking in the open air. And now you're going to be charged, absolutely, depending on where you're walking.
Exactly.
Mike?
Well, of course, you did ask the question, where were all the homeless people going to go? And of course, there are going to be a lot more homeless people in the not too distant future, because the benefit system is changing so that money no longer gets paid directly to landlords, and also the amount of money is going to be reduced. So we're going to find the situation that more people are going to find themselves in difficulty with homes and whatnot. And we've also got the situation where council tenants are being told what they can do with the extra rooms that they may have. So we might find that those two problems get amalgamated in some way.
It seems to be heading back to the Bolshevik revolution, where
Exactly.
people were told that they had to open private bathrooms to members of the public, and they were told how many shirts they were permitted to own. Please check those facts.
You better stash up then.
Yeah, well, something nasty is brewing. So we come on to the big story at the moment, which of course is this man, Jimmy Savile. And of course last night the BBC was desperately trying to save face with their Newsnight programme, and there was also a certain amount of reporting on Panorama. We watched the Newsnight programme with interest. And it does seem at the moment that finally the spotlight is beginning to be turned back on the BBC as to actually what was going on. And of course today we've had the Director General, Mr Entwistle, has been appearing in front of MPs.
I believe he's still there, I believe. He went on at about 10:30, I think, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, being quizzed by them.
Yeah.
So we've had a few rundown on various papers. The Guardian were reporting sort of a blow by blow, minute by minute, what was going on. But what was very interesting, I found, was that the Mail report that lawyers pull messages hinting at a cover-up from the Panorama documentary into a sex scandal. Internal messages were withdrawn from the expose for legal reasons. Revelations heighten fears that the corporation isn't telling the truth, and it piles even more pressure on the Director General, George Entwistle.
Yeah, we can call the Mail's report of that up on the screen. We're now starting really to get into the heart of the beast, because it's obvious that the BBC has not been telling the truth. For me, it was very interesting watching the Newsnight reporter, Liz, McKean, who I have to say that the original team that were going to do the investigation and started to work on the programme, I felt that they came across as credible. But the other thing that was happening was that the overall programme last night was so silky smooth. It was the BBC, they were such nice people. They were telling us how information that was on one floor of the BBC would certainly not get to the higher floor, the implication being that the knowledge about what Mr. Savile was up to was not getting to the higher managers. And for me, that's when the whole charade started to break down. But of course, we've also had now the lawyer for some of the victims actually talking in terms of a paedophile ring, and indeed we can come on in a second to the police's reports on this. So people who are aware of what paedophilia is really about have said to us that the thing about the BBC programme is that it was just too insipid. It didn't give any background to paedophiles. It didn't talk in any detail about what the horrible abuses are that they get up to. It doesn't talk about the fact that if you have one paedophile, particularly somebody who can procure children, they're going to be feeding that to a ring of other paedophiles. There was no comment on the mixing between high-level celebrities and senior politicians. So there was no substance given to the programme. It was all rather, well, there had been some inappropriate sexual behaviour with young girls. It was too clean. But I think finally it appears that the mainstream press are starting to ask the right questions. And we do also now seem to have some of the BBC staff themselves who realise something is wrong.
Yeah.
But the key question for us here at UK Column Live is actually who was Jimmy Savile associating with, because he was there with the rich and famous. On one hand, he was also intimately linked not only with the royal family, but of course with senior politicians. And it remains to be seen how thorough the investigation is going to be. But we're going to give some special credit here to Melanie Phillips from the Mail, who produced an article yesterday which was talking about Jimmy Savile and how the Liberal left had encouraged the sexualisation of our children. And this is a very key subject because there is a huge amount of evidence out there at the moment which is showing that the minds of children have been attacked now for many years. The BBC have absolutely been part of this by peddling increasingly sexual and provocative programmes. We've even, as you've mentioned, had programmes where they've been trying to glorify the idea of youngsters being taken into care.
That's the #1 programme for kids. Absolutely.
We've got the proliferation of increasingly graphic young magazines, particularly for young women. We have seen the BBC absolutely flaunting the pop culture and everything that goes with it. And I think for Melanie Phillips to actually pick up on these as a package, and she's now asking the questions which many of us, particularly parents, should be saying, is why have we allowed this situation to arise? So although this is a terrible thing with Jimmy Savile, perhaps it is actually going to help take bring the spotlight fully onto what the BBC has been about. This is an Express report. I have to put my glasses on for this one to read the small print. But it's saying that senior police officers investigating a suspected paedophile ring operating around the seafront arcades in Scarborough in the 1980s had concern that Jimmy Savile may have been involved. That was an exclusive there for the Daily Express. But although his name was repeatedly mentioned to the 2003 investigation team, Savile was never quizzed over targeting underage girls for sex between 1982 and 1985. I find all of this very convenient, that the police, which are supposed to be operating these very professional child protection teams, get into these investigations and then nothing happens. And we can state to you absolutely factually that the police who are talking to the UK column about some of these horrible matters are bringing up the fact that when investigations were done by police forces across the country, I'm not talking about Jimmy Savile, I'm talking to other child abuse matters, that their reports and investigations were closed down by senior police officers, presumably as a result of political pressure. But in one case, a nationwide investigation into the scale of child abuse. The report was locked in a senior officer's safe and never produced for the general public or further reports. So what we are beginning to learn from people, I'm going to say undercover and knowledgeable in these areas, are that the police themselves are implicated in the paedophile rings.
They must be getting very frustrated. The good cops must be getting very frustrated, the work that they're putting into it, and then just to have files just put away and never seen the light of day.
Well, they are, and I think this is why finally we're now seeing that the truth is coming to the surface. We've seen it over Hillsborough, we've seen it over Rochdale, Rotherham, and we're going to be talking in a minute about Oxfordshire. But I think that basically for the good policemen and women out there, the time has come for you to speak out and for you to start correcting things from the inside. Otherwise, my prediction is we're going to see the most massive cover-up of Jimmy Savile in order to protect senior members of the establishment, which we are told include senior politicians. Jimmy Savile here with Tony Blair, and you picked up that it was interesting that the Operation Orr paedophile investigation, of course, was closed
down by Tony Blair, yeah, back in 2005, I think that was.
Right, so we had an extraordinary situation where the American police were providing detailed lists of people in Britain who had acted child pornography sites. There were supposed to be, I believe I'm correct in saying, some 3,000 names, 3,500 names, of which 400 were regarded as establishment figures, and then, surprise, surprise, the investigation is closed down.
Interesting, though, to see if Mr. Savile was on that list.
Well, I have had it whispered in my ear over the last few days that Jimmy Savile's name was on the Operation Orr list, but of course here we are in the realm of government cover-up, because the general public once again has been denied access to the names on the Operation Orr list. So the only way we're going to find out the truth about Savile in that direction, and also who he was communicating with, is to call for the Operation Orr report to be fully released into the public domain.
And how would people go about that? Would they write for a freedom of information request, or would they need to contact their MPs, would you say?
I think everything is required. I think now is a fantastic opportunity for people to absolutely be pounding on the doors of their MPs, demanding that Westminster starts to open the books on what's going on. And of course, Westminster is going to be extremely squeamish about this, because everybody who is working and researching in this terrible field of child abuse is saying senior judges, senior politicians, senior police are involved in the abuse itself, which is why they're covering up.
UK
column live. We're going to bring this up again because it's absolutely in the picture at the moment. The UK column has been reporting for a year now on Oxford and Cherwell Valley College in Oxfordshire, where numerous witnesses have come forward to report sexual and physical abuse. They have been supported by a member of staff that students say, that was the gentleman in the picture, as an Asian gentleman, and students at the college are saying that this is the man who tried to protect them from the white abusers, and we're also told by students that this man lost his job as a result of trying to speak out. So it's very, very interesting that the BBC, of course, and Esther Ranson and many other top people at the moment are saying, how is it that nobody spoke out on the BBC? But if we take this example and just follow it through, I think that we can show today how this goes on. A key organisation for police policy and setting standards is the Association of Chief Police Officers. It says they bring together the expertise and experience of chief police officers from England, Wales and Northern Ireland, providing a professional forum to share ideas and best practice, coordinate resources and help deliver effective policing which keeps the public safe. So I'm going to call up here a statement from the Association of Chief Police Officers website, and this was a quote from their lead on child protection. Successful early interventions to protect children depend on effective multi-agency working both at national and local level. ACPO continues to work with our strategic partners in this area, such as the Home Office, Department of Education, Association of Directors of Children's Services and the Crown Prosecution Service, while forces have established working practices with children's services, local authorities and the safeguarding boards within the regions. So that's a very powerful statement by the senior police organisation in the country. So as a result, the UK column sent an email to that organisation in which we said the following: against these comments to do with how you see child protection and the growing horrific exposure of the Jimmy Savile ring, please can I ask your child protection team to read the UK column articles on Oxford and Cherwell Valley College concerning sexual and physical abuse of young people at the college. It includes reference to Thames Valley Police. I note that the policeman who tried to get action against Savile but was effectively told to drop it by a more senior officer was a member of Thames Valley Police. We are constantly hearing, why did nobody speak out? Why didn't anyone do something? Victims, staff members of the public and more recently the UK column have now been reporting abuse of young people for several years without any full and proper integrated action by the authorities. To date, we have labelled actions concerning OCVC a cover-up. Would you be kind enough to provide me with an official response from ACPO to this email and its contents? And of course, ACPO delayed for a little bit, but then we received the following reply. ACPO does not comment on individual cases, as these allegations related to something within the Thames Valley Police Force area. It is a matter for the force involved to pick up any complaints and deal with them through their professional standards department. If there are specific complaints about the Thames Valley Police response, then a complaint can be raised to the IPCC. Here is a link which may be of assistance. Now, the point I'd make in response to this reply is that having provided about eight articles detailing the abuse at Oxford and Cherwell Valley College, including talking about witnesses, including giving an excerpt from a letter talking about child pornography being circulated, what does the Association of Chief Police Officers do? Do they ask for more information? Do they express horror? No, we push away and it's somebody else's responsibility. And of course they point us back to the very police force that's involved in, we are saying, a cover-up. This is a list of the cabinet members from the Association of Chief Police Officers. And we just ring there Sarah Thornton, the Chief Constable for Thames Valley Police. This is a picture of her. So basically, when we go to the highest police authority in the country, what do? They don't come out of their offices to investigate the abuse allegations. What they do is start pushing you back into the system that you have the problem with. And if I reinforce that, and you brought this one up, here we've got a paedophile spared jail, and then they went on to rape a child.
Exactly.
It's quite incredible.
It is incredible.
Last comment on the BBC, which one of our listeners has asked for a mention, and I think it's a very important one, is that the BBC in line with its very secretive nature, has continued to refuse to release the names of the common purpose leaders within the organisation. So public money has been used to provide the common purpose leadership training. We know that in other areas of the country, paedophiles have been using the common purpose networks, and yet the BBC, absolute wall of silence.
Nothing at all.
Nothing at all.
Shocking.
Yeah.
Shocking.
Okay.
Whew, heavy show today.
Heavy show. I think we are going to see a lot more on the subject of Mr. Savile. I think we're going to see a lot more to do with paedophilia in the country. My prediction is that we're going to see the media trying to suggest that the abusers are all people in ordinary levels of society. And I believe that at the moment there is a shudder going around Westminster and other elitist establishments as a result of the...
It'd be interesting to see how many other people from the BBC start stepping down and standing aside. As we said, Paul Rippon's stood to the side, the editor of Newtonight now.
Yeah.
So it'd just be interesting over the next sort of 48 hours how many more people start standing down. Or
Well, hopefully if enough UK Column Live viewers and listeners start to take action, write to your MPs, demand action. Remember, of course, that the BBC also dropped its investigation into the Holly Gregg affair, the abuse of the Down syndrome girl. That was another example where the victims had been assured that the BBC were going to follow through with the investigative programme, and then at the last moment the rug completely pulled from under them. So at the moment, from the UK column side, the BBC has a track record of not investigating and not reporting on child abuse in this country.
what's interesting, I just want to add this. There is an article in the Guardian with regards to the BBC navel gazing. And the reason they do this is to protect the BBC's impartiality and integrity. And they're even saying that with regards to the reporting of the Dr. David Kelly case, that this happened as well.
Well, we remember also that at the moment the BBC has started an investigation into how impartial it is. So keep your eye on the BBC. We know Senator Savile from Jersey said, very powerful statement, the reason that governments like paedophilia is because it enables them to control people. And our view is this is what we're looking at. So talk to your MPs, talk to the BBC, let's see whether we can get the lid off the abuse which is really happening in Britain today.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.